stand by those words? You spoke about pain just before we went to a break.
Collie, you are obviously not quoting me verbatim from what I stated on TV, because that was a statement. So I made that comment on TV. But you're not quoting me verbatim there. So I see that there's comments on my character that's added there in that statement you've made there now.
That's why I'm asking if these indeed were your words.
Well, when you say it were my word, if it was my words, I think the words, the way in which they're presented there, carries a lot of additives which can potentially change or alter the meaning of my words. So I'm not going to say those are my words. There are some words that I have stated that is mentioned in that statement that you have just read, inclusive the whole statement you read. So I will say the words that I recognize in there are definitely words that I've said. What I've said is we all know what I've said. So do they still hold true? As for the words that I've said, that is the reason why we're here now, because I think we were from the onset, we were unambiguous about the situation. So the ambiguity arrives due to people wanting to package a narrative. That's fine. But when we get to the place of where we're going to sit and account for ourselves, the superior powers that be will now determine which narrative is a valid one, given the facts. Furthermore,
is there a wrong narrative here? Is there a particular narrative that you feel was being pushed?
I believe that in South Africa, the media plays such a fundamental part in how you conceptualize a narrative. Because media teaches us. I am reminded of my colleague, Naka Drotsky, that at the time of our speaking is in a critical condition in ICU after having been shot, protecting his family. And I realized that we all fall prey to victims. We all are victims to some form of the other, whether it's violence, whether it's this or that. Point being is, I don't stop and say, is it a white friend? Is it a black Springbok? No. I stop and I empathize with the pain of the individual to whom I relate. So for me, the pain is real. The pain is real, unquestionable. Everyone can determine for themselves their level and degree of pain. The slandering, however, which emanates from the narrative postulated by media, that slandering is there to determine the character and the nature of Ashwin Willemse, of Koli, of Mlilo, and so forth and so on. Nietzsche lost his mind trying to answer the question of who am I? If you go and read the Bible, God tells us who God is. I am the Alpha. I am the Omega. I am the beginning. I am the end. That's why spiritually we find that all different religions, whether it's Hinduism, whether it's Islam, whether it's Judaism, all allows for those that practice in a particular religion to know who God is. As a man, I'm reminded by the words of the late Lucky Dube that suffered a bad fate when he reminds us that says, the Bible tells me that man is made in the image of God. So when I see a man, I don't see a black man, I don't see a white man, I see the image of God, right? That's Lucky Dube. He says we must come together as one. Ashwin Willemse says, whether you call me a quota, whether you call me lazy, whether you call me uneducated, whether you said I bought my degree at Wits, whether you say I'm corrupt, whether you call me a bad analyst, whether you call me a player that got a chance through the transformation process of a rejuvenated South Africa that want to redress the historical imbalances through the great inequality that existed for decades, whether you call me whatever you want to call you, I have one message. Hashtag, I am Ashwin Willemse. Undeterred, my brother.
Yeah. Talk to me about what you hope the Human Rights Commission will restore here, because previously Ashwin has been quoted as saying he believes that particular institution is the one that will ultimately restore his dignity.
Only the cause of complaint is that a fundamental human right has been violated, and a right that is contained in the Constitution. And the South African Human Rights Commission is a Chapter 9 institution which possesses the power to investigate violations of that nature. And therefore the process should, in the end, vindicate that right in a manner that redresses the injustice that has been done, not only to Ashwin, but to everyone who is in a similar position. And also to create a deterrent that should not happen again, and ensure that the promises of the Constitution of the right to equality and the reconfirmation of the dignity of everyone, and in particular the black and the African child, finds true expression in the post-1994 South Africa. So what we hope for is a process in which the constitutional rights of Ashwin, particularly his right to dignity, and the constitutional rights of everyone who might be in a similar position is vindicated, and that this should never happen again.
On that particular point, this is actually what I also want to explore with you, that the other element of these terms of reference is that the Commission will probe whether SuperSport has received complaints relating to unfair discrimination on the basis of race in the workplace. And this may possibly be opened to other individuals apart from Ashwin Willemse. Are you aware of other individuals that may possibly appear before the Human Rights Commission? Because my understanding is that subsequent to this incident, 4 other black presenters filed allegations of racism against the SuperSport management.
Yeah, the number is more than 4. The number is more than 4, and the number...
How big is the number?
The number is more than 4. Yeah, the number is more than 4. But the point, clearly, is this. What happened on the 9th of May was the day on which the camel's back was broken.
19th.
Sorry, on the 19th of May was the day on which the camel's back was broken. This is not an isolated incident which happened on that particular day. It was simply dramatized on that day. So there is a narrative to it, to employ his words, which began a very long time ago, and which explains why there are also other actors that are coming into play, and that also explains why the Human Rights Commission saw it fit not only to inquire in the circumstances of Ashwin, but to inquire into the circumstances of other black people who might have felt themselves to have their right to dignity or any other right as promised in the Constitution violated. So that particular day is simply the day on which hell broke loose. But otherwise, there is a long story to it.
On that very point, Ashwin, let me bring you back in. These 4 black presenters that have subsequently filed their own complaints, they are saying, among other issues, that there is racism based on pay parity versus their white counterparts, excuse me, and that certain roles at SuperSport are reserved for non-white commentators. What exactly is going on in that institution?
Certain roles are for white commentators, you say. So that part, you know, even Advocate Maleka's report talked about the race-based positions. It highlighted that, you know, so people can go read the report, and in there it actually states some of that. As for the 4, as Mulilo said, more than 4 presenters, it's an interesting phenomenon in that we are not dealing with a case of the glass is falling off the table and it's broken, and you can see it and you can clean it up for as far and wide as possible. We are dealing with the intangible. to take the intangible and align it to a legal construct, to present it and argue it before a panel, it's something that I never fully appreciated. This process had taught me the deeper meaning of what the struggle it must have been for anyone that was a legal practitioner in the years of apartheid, representing the struggle of black people, for example, you know. So my question, or to answer your question this way, I think we are all very vulnerable and exposed.
I'm quickly running out of time, Ashwin. I've got to squeeze this in. You mentioned all these, and you seem to be in agreement with these fellow black presenters. I want to ask you this question. How is it possible that this kind of practice is allowed to take root at that channel when you have a group CEO at MultiChoice in the name of Calvo Mawela? He's a black person. The division under which you worked is led by Gideon Kobane. He's a black professional. How is it possible that this is allowed to take root?
So, please, with your permission, I'd like to say that you postulate I'm in agreement with the black presenters. I only highlighted the challenge of their position because there was a claim, and subsequently the claim was dealt with, and there was a resolution.
50 seconds.
Whatever happened there, we don't know. They will have to come and account for themselves. So I'm not in agreement with nothing because I wasn't party to it. I was only on the WhatsApp group, but I wasn't party to the details, right? So as for Calvo and Gideon, these are black people, man. So they themselves are not removed from the struggle of black people. The struggle of black people is for all black people. And so I'm sitting on ENCA, and remember I've been in the studio of SuperSport for a long time, and I was the one that actually came here to ENCA, did some sport, and later on was saying, no, there's competition. So I'm also very cognitive of not wanting to look at Calvo and them, because this is a dynamic that I think needs a great deal of patience and understanding. And hopefully they themselves can come and give clarity to the nation as to what role and part they played in it, because I was not privy to their role and their part. I only, not even regularly, but it is certain instances I would deal with them. You know, so therefore, I would like them to come and explain to the nation, to the Human Rights Commission, exactly what part and what role they played in it, because at this point I don't know. However, I'm of the belief that we have all committed to what is captured in the Constitution. We all respect the Bill of Rights. So we know we don't have to fear nobody. We don't have to favor nobody, because we are all equal before the law.
Ashwin Willemse, I have run out of time, and I'm hoping and I'm pleading for leniency from my producer. One more question, please.
Okay.
In a previous interview, you said that you would reach out to Nas Porter and Nick Mallet. I'd like to know, in the spirit, in fact, quote unquote, in the spirit of reconciliation, what became of that? Did it happen?
Yeah, I reached out because I don't have a problem. You know, I have children. No, they never came back. Nas, I spoke to Nas, and he was going to think about it. But you know, maybe he's been busy. It's been it's been a challenging time for everybody. Nick never took my call, never came back. But it's okay. Point being is, a lot of blood has flown to establish the rights of all of us today, right? Now, here's a case of we need to come closer. We need to reach out. We need to speak. We need to talk, because the reality is Ashwin claiming a position is not going to solve the greater societal issues. But if everyone who is in a compromising position, if all of the oppressed learn from Freire when he said the pedagogy of the oppressed, If we learn from that, if we learn from history, if we learn from Mandela that went to go eat Cook Sisters with Tannie Betsy Verwoerd, if we learn from Madiba that walked out of prison that said, you know, if I don't forgive, I may walk out of these doors, but for the rest of my life, I will be imprisoned. I'm guided by my ancestors. I'm guided by my predecessors. I'm sitting on a chair that is standing on the shoulders of giants. So how can I not live in the spirit of reconciliation? It is who I am. I'm a South African. I'm a child of the Rainbow Nation. So we believe in the spirit of reconciliation. However, we must deal with what we need to deal with to ensure that we create a better tomorrow for the unborn African child.
Ashwin Willemse, on that note, thank you very much for having afforded us your time. It truly has been a pleasure talking to you. Modise Tamlilo, thanks indeed for making the time. And on that note, this is where we're going to end our conversation with the two gentlemen.
And thank you very much, Koli, and your guests there. After the break, we take a look at the sustainability of print media in the digital era.